One thing that students need to do or want to do is figure out what are the odds of me getting a pharmacy residency. And I assure you that your subjective opinion is probably wrong. And I'm going to tell you why and what factors are out there. And it's not because you're not a smart person, you're probably a very smart person, but you are an isolated person. That is, you don't get to see what's going on at the other 139 schools of pharmacy. That's actually like a little more than that. But I'm going to tell you what's going on, and hopefully you can increase your odds of getting a residency. So, if you want help from me, you can. It's $75 to help you with your letter of intent. I do help you with some general advice and things like that if you have questions. But if you want to work on that specific aspect, whether you are just don't consider yourself a comfortable writer, and so forth, I'm happy to help you. You can get some free materials at residencyhelp.com for your letter of intent, recommendations, and of course the Pharmacy Residency podcast comes out of there. All right, well, let's start with the stats real quick. In 2019, 7,105 enrolled, 1,168, most of whom did not get an interview, pulled out, and then there were 5,937 participating. So on the front of a pharmacy school website, you'll see that the average is 64%, but if you go from the number that actually enrolled, then it's closer to 54%. So you can take either one, but I would go with plan for the worst, or hope for the best, plan for the worst, and so say 50-50. So 2,115 found out on March 15th they did not match, and then of those that did not match, if you're going from the enrolled numbers, it's over 3,000. But those kind of knew ahead of time because they didn't get any interviews and had maybe an extra month or two to figure out what they're going to do. My projections, I'll do this quickly. I think there's going to be over 8,000 this year. That's just an increase of 7 students per school, so it's not a ton. I think 1,300 will withdraw, and just taking the 16% from before, and 6,700 will participate. So the percentage will go down to around 60%, even taking into account an increase of about 200 or so sites to 4,000. And there are some issues with some community sites closing down because the independents or the actual site actually closed down because of some store closures. And then in terms of matching, I think it's going to go down closer or to below 50%. So 2,700 will not match on that March, but I think if you go from the enrolled numbers, it's going to be around 4,000 who at one point in time went in to try to get a residency and didn't get one. So what can increase your odds? So obviously I'm going to focus on the one thing that is most modifiable and that I can help the most with my English background. So the letter of intent. If you make a generic letter of intent, dear residency director, don't put anything that recognizes that it's a specific site with specific characteristics. That is really a way to get things, if you want to think of it as like points docked, you can get points docked for that. Letters of recommendation, you can do a lot of things to help the recommender. Remind them all the hard work you did. Tell them exactly why you're working with each site. Understand the residency recommendation questions and what they're going to have to do and answer them for them. What are your 2 strengths? What are your 2 weaknesses? How did you work on those weaknesses? I talk about it in my letter of intent book. You can find on Amazon, Audible, and so forth. APPEs, have you done an APPE with them? Someone with a 5-week or 6-week interview, it's really tough to beat with a 1-day interview. And they're not allowed to say, hey, we've already got somebody. There's no reason for you to fly all the way out here. Every PGY1 has to go through the whole process. Now PGY2 is different, but PGY1, if you did an APPE, that's the 3rd modifiable factor. And I put the 4th modifiable factor, which is not really in the literature, but this is my own deal. There are mistakes you can make on forecasts that are absolute deal killers. If you put CCV or push the button that says I intentionally left this blank because you have a CV that already has your extracurriculars and you didn't feel like uploading it or retyping it, that is a red flag to a residency site that you are high maintenance and are not willing to do the extra work that it takes to make their lives easier. Because in the flow of the technology, they don't go to your CV first, they actually go to this forecast section first. If you are having significant uploads, and what I mean by that is you can't delete uploads, at least you couldn't last year. So if you have edition 1, edition 2, edition 3, like, who is this person that didn't prepare when they were putting these uploads? Is it going to necessarily knock you out because of this? I don't know, but I'm just saying it's something to watch out for. And then please pay attention to the file names. Don't put something like, the wrong hospital that you're applying to, like you're applying to the other hospital across town, but you labeled this one or sent up the wrong file. You don't do this tired, okay? So don't do this at the end of your APPE day. Do it when you're fresh. College factors, which you may or may not have too much control over. Hopefully you were looking at these when you were going there, but do they have a history of good match rates? There's a reason some schools do really, really well, and their match rates are closer to 80%. And there are schools that are in, I have no idea how low it goes, but I've seen as low as 15%. And that's percentage of students, so like 3 out of whatever it was matched or something like that. Good NAPLEX, MPJE, and CPJE scores, while you are an individual and it's unfair for them to look at that, the reality is that they're hiring someone and they want to make sure that person's going to pass the NAPLEX. So if your school has a poor NAPLEX track record, you may want to go so far as to tell them what your PCOA score is and justify that you're going to pass. Curricular residency preparation, this is relatively new, but schools like the University of Houston, Northeastern, Purdue, and Kentucky, there are many others that I'm sure have it, but they have in their curriculum residency preparation, some as early as P1 year. Do you have significant work in clinical, leadership, research, teaching, and service, all of the big 5? And then are you local to the site? Are you going to be someone who stays around? Are you someone from that area? What can decrease your odds? It's kind of the inverse, just like cholinergic to anticholinergic, but did you write a generic LOI? Dear sir, oh my gosh. Poor recommendations. You may not know, you may not have asked those recommenders, can you write a positive recommendation? You have no relationship with them. You've never done an APPE. Your school has a poor matching history, poor NAPLEX scores, poor MPJE or CPJE, or no history at all because you're a new school. No or little curricular preparation. Your college didn't set you up in terms of certain things that they're doing throughout the year to help you get a residency. Big gaps in the big 5. Maybe you don't have any teaching experience. You don't have any research. You have to identify these and say, hey, I know there's going to be a residency research project. It's not going to be a problem. I have this experience. You want to make sure you fill in those gaps. Maybe you're distant to the site, and when I say distant, I mean maybe you're applying from the deep south to the northeast, or the deep south to California, or something like that, or no relationships with the site. If you have little curricular preparation, gaps in the big 5, and again, no relationships with the site, that's going to be really tough for you to overcome. And then again, don't make those forecast mistakes. Type in the extracurriculars. It's a pain, but please do it. Please be mindful as you do it. Make sure that you upload only when you're absolutely sure, and then make sure those file names are correct.